All right, guys. Again, Jared kind of can lead this off because he actually attended the draft in Detroit. Over 700,000 fans attended the NFL draft. It's become almost bigger than the Super Bowl. I mean, I can only imagine what it was like there in person. Why don't you fill us in
Yeah,
a little bit?
asterisk, honest to God, I left right before the first pick was made, like an hour, probably hour and a half before it happened. I couldn't last all day, man. I couldn't do it. But it was surreal. I got the experience. It was like I've never been to Times Square. I imagine it's what like Times Square feels like. People everywhere. It was the ultimate. I know you love doing this, Ted. Everybody does,
Yeah,
Matt. You too. People watching. It
right.
was the best people watching you will ever do. Everybody's got their face painted. Everybody's got the fake shoulder pads with spikes. Everybody's got the painted hair with the mohawk. And everybody was in a great mood. Think about this whole weekend. There was no negative stories. We were kind of somewhat worried about that. Like no
Yeah.
violence, no crime. I don't know. Maybe I'm not scouring the internet as well as others. I have seen no negative stories come out from the entire weekend in Detroit. It was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
and if they didn't close the gates, I mean, they probably could have got close to 1 million people in
Right.
after all 3 days. It was a chaos. It was a chaotic circus in all the best ways. I just don't do great with crowds. It's tough. I don't know. I'm a little bit of a weirdo in that sense where the Times Square, like we were walking all around, went to the fan experience, which was awesome. I mean, they have the Super Bowl rings, pictures with Heisman trophies, all the different players like you game worn uniforms and lockers, all the different type of 40-yard dash, vertical jump, people just getting a kick out of it. It was crazy to see all the
Yeah.
people in Hart Plaza doing that. But it was just incredible. The draft is such a like TV event, in my opinion. And I mean, kudos to ESPN, kudos to the NFL. We know they always do it right. How cool was it seeing all the different drone shots that they did to
Yeah.
capture that experience?
Oh, it was awesome.
My favorite part of the draft, man, is like how they do it. It's like every time a player is picked, they put a graphic up on the side of like the Rensen or any other building like in Detroit. Or when a pick was in, it felt like they showed the same like kind of bay shot over the water. Like the way they use the scenics on that telecast in their graphic package, it was awesome. But overall, what a great just time for the city of Detroit. And how about that? City of Detroit coming out on top. It
Right.
feels like we don't get to say that very often, but I think a lot of people saw how awesome, more so than necessarily the city, just how awesome the people are here and how we treated everybody like it was, like they're our friend. That's what it really was like.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean it shattered. You said it, Ted. Over 700,000 shattered the records for her attendance for an NFL draft. I mean, by far, like 3 times the next closest city as far as attendance for an NFL draft weekend. So that's impressive. And obviously a big part was the weather. The weather was great all weekend because if we would have got that
Rain, right.
mid-April out of nowhere snowstorm, sleet, one of those kind of Michigan weekends, that would have changed everything. Perfect weather weekend. The Tigers were home. I saw people saying like they would have never gone to a home Tigers game if they didn't happen to be there for the draft. Then it was like, yeah, cool. Let's go catch the Tigers too. That kind of tied it all together. Obviously, the Lions coming off of best season probably ever in franchise history. That helps the excitement. We're not the number one pick, hoping for our next quarterback that's going to go down the tube or something. So, yeah, everything that just came together with it. You mentioned the drone shots. One of my buddies that I used to work with up in Bristol, he's still up there. He's like the head person of the drone group at ESPN. And it's crazy what that's become. I mean, Jared, how many of you, the scenics and stuff that you
They did
guys,
such a good job.
yeah, the drone thing. And I messaged him actually a couple days ago and I said the same thing. I was like, dude, your guys' drone shots at the draft were insane. And he said they went like 3 weeks earlier and they were there for like 2 weeks shooting all those drone shots and getting everything. The amount of work that goes into the draft is really, it's probably the most impressive thing, that whether it's the NFL Network or ESPN that they do, because like you said, there's 257 picks, but there's another 200 players that they have to be prepared for in case they get picked. They have to have telestration packages, all the graphics, like you said, all the statistics, just all the video, just in case that kid gets picked, and they're able to do it
seamless
immediately. So
yeah,
it is insane. I saw a clip, Louis Riddick. I didn't see it live, but I saw it on Twitter. It was right before the last pick, right before Mr. Irrelevant, Jared Patel, got picked. Louis Riddick. It was like a 6-minute clip.
It is
went through and-
impressive.
yeah, he thanked
rattled off.
everyone and said, thanks to everyone behind the scenes and listed, all the people. It was really, really cool to see that because, a lot of times the behind the scenes people don't get the love they deserve, but that was really cool to see. But yeah, so all together, I mean, before even getting into the actual draft, sitting there watching it in Detroit, all the love Detroit was getting, how cool it looked, all the buildings, the city, like you said, just they were using the city for their broadcast. All the really cool buildings. Speaking of architecture, Detroit definitely has it.
Yeah, they have some.
It was top notch. I mean, and I saw people saying like, how can the NFL not want to go back there in 5, 7, 8 years or something? I mean, what it just was, that was probably the best NFL draft ever. And that's not being biased as Lions fans.
No, it was.
Yeah, even where they put it and how they had it with the buildings kind of tucked in behind where everything was going on. I mean, it just looked great from up top on the drone view. It was awesome.
The Hutch mural.
Yeah, it was just incredible for sure. And Detroit's getting all the kudos, which is well deserved. It's been a long time coming, but you also got to say Michigan. I mean, Michigan showed up. The sports fans in this state, second to none. I think. I mean, obviously biased, but it's just great to see. And let's hope the Lions can keep that momentum going. Now, have you heard anything at all, Jared? Negative at all? Was there anything negative?
No, I haven't. And that's what's awesome. And I mean, we are in such a positive role right now with the Detroit Lions and the NFL in general. Here's what I just said. I don't know why I thought about this comment. Apparently, I just think about this podcast all day. You made the comment like, "Hey, I hope you boo Roger Goodell." Listen, Roger Goodell is not a perfect commissioner, but I think he's done a goddamn good job.
Right.
The way the NFL has exploded in the last 15 years, again, not perfect. We don't have to dissect every decision he's made, but the way he's embraced these smaller towns like Detroit, think about how the NBA basically spits on towns like Detroit.
Right.
The way they've embraced it, they're going to Green Bay next year for the draft. I just feel like the NFL has done everything right the last 3-4 years.
Right.
And I become such a big NFL fan. Well, more so it's like we're NBA playoffs are going on right now. I can't get into it, man. It's like the NBA, they're talking about doing the All-Star weekend. Oh yeah, we finally we saw the NFL came for the NFL draft. Let's do All-Star weekend in Detroit. It's like, dude, I almost don't even want them to come. It's like, the players are gonna bitch about it. The weather's gonna be shitty. I just almost don't even want the NBA All-Star weekend to come. It's like, dude, you guys had your chance. The NFL, who's a bigger entity than you guys, said, we're going to come and we're going to put Detroit in the spotlight. So I just think Goodell, he had a great interview with Pat McAfee for 30 minutes. I watched the whole thing. I think he's a smart dude. Again, he gets a bad rap, gets booed. I still appreciate the boos. Smartly brought Eminem out with him. So didn't get booed.
Right.
I think Goodell deserves a gold star for this weekend. I really do.
Yeah. Let me just backtrack just a little bit. It was kind of a throwaway line. I am not a Goodell hater. I just threw out the comment because they always boo him. What was sweet to see though, every time one of the teams in the Central Division came up on the board, they got booed big time. Right. That was classic.
The classic thing is that you still call it the Central Division.
Oh yeah, right.
The NFC
Wait,
North.
It wasn't actually. I thought he was just I figured he just got the Tigers mixed up. Did it used to be called the Central Division?
Yeah.
That's classic.
A long time ago. I screwed that up too.
Back when the Buccaneers were still in the Central.
That's right.
It was
NFC North. Now, one negative. I heard some people saying the negative. You asked about negatives.
Yeah.
I had a handful of friends that were down there for the whole weekend and stuff too. But it's not a negative at all. Uber prices. They were Uber prices, right? They do the surge pricing and stuff like that, and hotel prices. But it's but that they were saying if there was a negative, that's what it was. So that's basically saying no, there's no negative. I mean, that's to be expected.
I actually had a quick little funny story about that. So when I did leave at 5:30, my group of the buddies that were there, they stayed. I was a lone wolf that left. So I was on the other side of Comerica Park on Woodward, where all these food trucks and vendors were at. I had to run to the other side of Little Caesars Arena to get picked up. Basically, it's there was no way to get picked up. I had to run a mile, and the guy still had a hard time picking me up. So I can imagine 2 a.m. or whatever when everybody was really leaving the draft. after the
Right.
Lions picked could have been freaking chaos.
Well,
It would've been chaos.
how much was your Uber ride home? Too?
That was at 5. So think about that. That was at 5:30, and that's like a 20-minute drive. It's like $60.
60.
Right.
Jeez.
So that he probably
But
dropped
much
150. I bet.
much better than trying to drive down there yourself and try and
Yeah.
navigate that. No, you just take an Uber, and that way also you don't have to deal with not having a couple of adult beverages. You know, you can just have a good time and then just Uber home. You know, that's the way to do
I
it.
kind of wished I was in a little bit better, more of like a drinking mood. The amount of characters down there, it's like people come it's just like weird. Like you guys are like these Philadelphia Eagles fans. It's funny, like these guys I would run into throughout the day. All of a sudden, I'm watching the telecast at home. It's like, oh, I saw that guy, that Eagles guy with the mohawk that's green and the shoulder pads and the jersey. I talked to that guy in the pants on. Like people are just coming from all across the country to watch an NFL draft.
Right.
Like it was like a boring version of a concert. It's like the NFL just has the weirdest fans, but the best fans. Like I don't care what the Eagles are doing, I'm gonna be there for it. Like that's what these people are like. They're all over the place.
This kind of ties into my whole Super Bowl experience, being in the Super Bowl city of Vegas for 3 days with all these NFL fans there. Most of them, though, were for the two teams, but still, everybody was in a good mood. Nobody was causing any issues, and it sounds like that's what happened here, too. And by the way, fellas, just a quick news flash. I am booking my room in New Orleans tomorrow.
All right, well, you got to pull this number last year, but you didn't. But so are you just going to follow the Super Bowl every year now, as long as the Lions are?
Well, yeah, heck yeah. While they're in contention, I went this year and they almost made it. What if I didn't go next year and they do make it?
And you may as well book it now before prices get absolutely outrageous.
That's exactly the strategy, because I checked on some prices and they're well within range. So I'm booking tomorrow. You can always cancel, right?
Might as well do it. Yeah, just make sure to get that travel insurance or whatever, so you can get your credit back. But
well, I don't think. Here's the deal. I don't think I'm gonna fly. I think I'll drive down to New Orleans.
Yeah,
it's not that big a deal.
Make a little road trip out of it. I think a big thing, not to change topic from that. I think it's a hell of a strategy for you. Just start booking every Super Bowl. Look 5 years out. 5 years out. Just book them all right now.
Right.
And just get it done. Because one of these years, the Lions are going to do it. One of these years. I was just thinking about when Jared's talking about the fans and the NFL doing it right in Goodell. Yep. I think a big thing, because you guys know I'm a big NBA fan. The NBA is such a players. It's all about the players.
Yep.
The NBA, I mean, yeah, there's fans, people love the fans or whatever, but like you guys describing the Super Bowl, the NFL draft. I mean, NBA fans just aren't really like that. They'll follow their teams, the diehards, but most people aren't going to drive across the country for the All-Star game, like you said, or definitely the NBA draft. It's just all about the players. That's why right now the NBA playoffs, it's tough for maybe the casual fans to get into, because Steph's out, LeBron's about to be knocked out, Durant just got swept. The usual stars that we're used to, they're on their way out, and it's all mostly now the younger guys that maybe you don't know much about. And it's not people don't follow like their teams as much. Like you've even talked about, Jared, being like, people follow like guys they like. You become a LeBron fan, so you're going to follow whatever team he's on. People that, Steph's been on the Warriors his whole career, so that's a little different. But like, say you're a James Harden fan, you're going to bounce from team to team, whichever team that he's on. And so that's what I just think the NBA is so different in that sense than the NFL. And the NFL I think they know that. It's all about the fans. That's why they've made the NFL draft a fan event. That's why the Super Bowl is a fan event. They have the 40-yard dashes. They have those fan experience things, the food trucks, because they know people are going to come from around the country, around the world. I mean, they were interviewing people from around the world that came to Detroit for the NFL draft. They have to do this stuff to make the fans have a great weekend. Like one of my buddies' dads was there with, like, I think his brother. And so he was sending pictures and stuff the whole time. And they went in, they were 2 rows from the stage. They went all out. They said, this is, who knows if the draft is ever going to be back in Detroit. Let's go all out. They were 2 rows from the stage. So he's sending pictures each day of the draft. On their chair, they got a huge swag bag, Barry Sanders autographed football, NFL draft backpacks stuffed with hats and shirts and all this other kind of stuff. Each day they got this stuff.
Yep.
Saturday morning before the draft, they went to this like private event where Calvin Johnson spoke. Barry Sanders was there. It was like drinks, cocktail hour type of thing. There was like just a bunch of other events like that they were able to go to. And it's just, that's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to put your city on display, especially, Lions, let's let people get to know the Lions. Yeah. Barry Sanders is all over the place. Billy Sims was even around, Calvin Johnson, all these legends. And then, the intro, Hutch comes out, Amon St. Brown comes out,
That's
when
awesome.
they're, coming out for the draft. And then even at the beginning of the second day, they honor Michigan football winning the national championship. And it's just like, they just did it all right for the fans. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Michigan State fans didn't like that or whatever, but it's like the NFL, whether it's, like I said, whether it's ESPN, whether it's NFL Network, whatever, they get it. They know how to do this kind of stuff. They know how to do it. And whether you're there in person or watching on TV, you feel the energy, you're into it. I mean, for a draft, just to have like guys' names be called, like you're locked in for that. It's crazy.
You're exactly right. It's like the NBA. Adam Silver is more concerned about making the players happy. Goodell is what makes the fans happy. It's a big difference. Like Christmas Day, we're playing football on Christmas Day now. It's like, hey, we're gonna figure out the schedule, but people want to watch football on Christmas Day, so that's what we're gonna do. It's like almost you're spot on. It's like, man, it's like they in the NBA. It's like Silver has his like balls in a jar. It's like, what is going on? The players are calling all the shots. It's like they don't celebrate the small towns like the NFL does, which I think maybe is what I was trying to say earlier, like the Green Bays, the Detroits. They celebrate us. The NBA, it's like they would like. I think if they had it their way, they'd kiss the Pistons goodbye.
Right.
Well, here's a perfect example. The NBA draft. Just look at that. It's a lottery thing, for crying out loud. It's not the worst team gets the top pick. Right. The NFL likes the parity where everybody has a chance. And again, back to Goodell and what the NFL owners are all looking at, you can book it. They're going to have a 3-day weekend now coming up for Super Bowl weekend. They're going to expand the schedule a little bit, have it President's Day weekend, and everybody that has President's Day off is going to have the day after the Super Bowl off. It's going to happen.
And when that does happen, it's going to be like, why wasn't it always like this?
I know.
It should have always been like this. It should have always been like this. I do remember hearing someone, because President's Day weekend, so this is going to maybe the rivalry between the NBA and NFL, even NASCAR.
Right.
President's Day weekend is always NBA All-Star weekend. And then even President's Day weekend is always the Daytona 500.
They should just take it over. I'm
right. And that's what I mean. It might happen because everyone always says that. Like, man, I would go to Vegas. I would go to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I got to work the next day, or, there's no way I can get work off. If you do it on a holiday weekend, then turn it into a 3-day event. Have Saturday be a whole fan experience. A bunch of, former players, like you said, all the trophies and rings, you could make it a weekend thing, and people would do that. People would go for a weekend Super Bowl experience for sure.
Hell yes.
Especially if it was, Nashville, Miami, Vegas, New Orleans. The one thing about Detroit with the Super Bowl is we know weather in February is fairly iffy in Michigan. That'd be the one thing, but
I'm not clamoring for that Super Bowl in Detroit. It's like the draft, the draft was kind of because it was free. Why all these people want? It's like, it's awesome, dude. It's like, show up, stay for an hour, stay for 12 hours, go out all 3 days, go one day. I'm not clamoring for the Super Bowl. It'd be cool, but again, I just think it's like, it's not Detroit in the summertime is a lot different than Detroit in the winter.
For sure.
And the Super Bowl is so exclusive, like, to who could even go. It's like not even really Detroit people able to go. So it's like, I'm not dying for that.
Yeah.
What did you guys make of the actual draft picks? I'll just roll through a few of them right off top.
Yeah.
So obviously they took Terrion Arnold with the 24th pick overall. The defensive back out of Bama, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., defensive back out of Missouri, round 2. Those are kind of the two headliners. What did you guys make of the Lions draft as a whole?
I mean, my first reaction to those being the first 2 picks, clearly Brad Holmes and us as fans, we watched it. They saw the end of the year where that defensive backfield was atrocious. I mean, any receiver with a lick of talent was putting up 200 yards, let alone if it was Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb or, some of the top receivers in the league were just absolutely torching the Lions. Also, Gardner Johnson is officially gone, who was their big pickup last year. Cam Sutton also, legal troubles, he's gone. So they had to draft some corners. And they got Terrion Arnold is was quite possibly the best corner in the draft, and he's just an absolute stud at Alabama. Not a bad strategy either that Brad Holmes has grabbed onto. Hey, let's just draft Alabama guys, because Nick Saban has these dudes pro ready. I mean, we saw Brian Branch step right in, Jahmyr Gibbs, he came on. Jamison Williams has looked like he's coming on, and there's others. So I don't mind it. And the kid out of Missouri, not that I'm like some expert on him or whatever, but having worked and covered a couple of his games and the show that we do down here, he was talked about all football season last year as like a sleeper NFL draft type of guy. Like, man, this dude, he plays on Missouri, so they're not very good, but this dude is going to be a stud in the pros. He ends up on the Lions, so not bad at all with those first 2 picks.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with the first 2 picks. They need help in that secondary. They were pretty much solid everywhere else. So, shore that up. They'll be battling for playing time without a doubt. The rest of it, I'd give them probably a solid B+, for whatever I know.
Right.
They drafted this unknown guy from Canada as an offensive tackle, but he's huge,
Yep.
And he can play behind some guys that know what they're doing. And then this Wingo from LSU, I mean,
He's a beast.
a lot of people were surprised he dropped that far.
Yep. Yeah, just another really good defensive lineman, like SEC defensive lineman. He's going to come in, and whether it pans out or not, no one knows. He might be out of the league in a year. You never know, but the potential is there. And like you said, there weren't really many holes. Secondary probably one on the roster, and that's why you can pick. The offensive line is pretty set, so that's why you can pick a project, because he's not expected to start day one. All right, come in. Let Taylor Decker teach you how to be a pro, and maybe in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be ready to go. So, and like we said before, we posted the video. We said it last week. Got to trust Brad Holmes. He's got a pretty good track record so far.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you're an asshole if you argue what he does. I'm going to do that a little bit. I mean, corners are so hard to plug and play. I don't know. Maybe I'm like being the devil's advocate, but it's like just relying on 2 rookie corners. I mean, I think we're maybe all a little bit warped from Sauce Gardner, how he just walked into the league and was shut down. I don't think that's normally how it goes. I mean, it's such a big jump.
We saw Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah came
exactly. It's like that's number 1 corner off the board. That's number 3 overall pick, and it was a bust. It's hard. That's the draft as a whole. But I don't know. Last year, it seemed like it was almost like the scapegoat was Cam Sutton and the defensive backs. I know they were not good, obviously.
He was horrible.
He was.
Also, they had no pass rush. And I don't think we addressed that. I know the Wingo guy, I mean, we're counting on a round 6 guy to come in and turn us around in the pass rush department.
Right.
That's again, we're poking holes through a guy who has dominated the draft year in and year out.
Right.
He's on a little bit of a heat check right now, is how I would describe it. So we'll see. Again, he's probably going to nail these picks. But I look at it as like we didn't necessarily address the pass rusher problem, which I thought was the biggest problem, more than defensive backs.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, he didn't pick a defensive back with a number 3 pick. He picked 24. So, it wasn't that much of a reach, I don't think. But we'll see. We'll see.
I think I like the picks. Again, you can't go wrong drafting SEC players,
right?
Especially Nick Saban. The one thing that I thought Todd McShay pointed out that I thought was interesting, he said when you listen to how Nick Saban talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry and Arnold, it seemed like he liked Kool-Aid McKinstry a little more.
Did he?
Which would make me think a little bit worried. I mean, Nick Saban knows defensive backs, and damn, he knows the players that went through Alabama. That makes me a little worrisome. But like Terry and Arnold, all the interviews I've seen, his presence on the stage when he's drafted, like how he's addressing the crowd. It's like, I'm going to root for this guy. I like him.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Rakestraw, the story on him is basically he's undersized, but kind of plays with a little bit of an edge.
Chip.
Yeah. Sounds like a guy made for Dan Campbell. So, and then last thing just on this, so the guy you're talking about, Ted, the guy they took in the 4th round, Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle, University of British Columbia, 6'7", 352 pounds. Literally looks like he's made of muscle.
Right.
Like I saw like some of his I don't know if it's like his pro day or whatever you want to call it. Literally looked like they recorded it in like a parking garage. So I don't know what he's gonna be, but I like that we have him. So I'll be excited to see how they turn out. 2 other quick real thoughts on the draft. I wish we could have got Mike Sanders still. That was kind of the big bummer. I thought maybe somehow, some way he would align and come to us. I remember making the comment to like a coworker, like probably at the start of the Michigan's football season, like man, what's like Sanders still's draft rating? Is he like a second rounder, first rounder? It's like, dude, I don't think he's gonna get drafted. So it's kind of nice seeing that vindicated. Like, dude, no, we saw this guy. He's a stud. Like
Yeah.
everybody's gonna go. Sure enough, he like was the number one guy, but he really flew up the draft boards.
Well, Saban said he's his best player pound for pound.
Cooper DeJean. That was my other two guys I would have liked to have seen in the Lions colors, but in Brad Holmes we trust.
Yep.
Yeah, DeJean would have been cool. Sanders still would have been. I think he's going to be a great pro, whether he plays nickel, corner, slot, whatever they do, he's going to do well. I was trying to look up when you were saying that. Lions did sign Marcus Davenport. He's a defensive end. He's an edge. He was with the Vikings last year.
Right.
He only played 4 games, so he was hurt. But before that, he's been really good throughout his career. So they did address edge with a free agent signing. But right, you can always use depth. You can always, draft someone in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, because as we know, Hutchinson needs a little help there on the defensive line. So hopefully they've addressed that with free agent signings. And then, the couple draft picks that they did.
What did you guys make?
Hopefully, Holmes knows what he's doing. The Terrion Arnold thing, one thing I think Kool-Aid, like, reading all the draft boards and the experts or whatever, Kool-Aid probably graded as like the better athlete pro type of thing. Arnold is right there for sure. But you have to think that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, they're drafting dudes to fit the locker room, to fit the Lions culture, to fit what they're doing. And Terrion Arnold, every interview that you see with him, if you don't watch an interview with him and see his story and like just say, yep, like you said, Jared, I'm rooting for this guy, I think he's going to step right into that locker room and dudes are just going to love him. I mean, he's going to step right in and he's going to be one of the guys from day one. And that's probably a big part with this team. This team's ready to win. So now they just need a couple added pieces to take them over the top.
Yeah. How fun is in the big, like the number one bite I kept seeing from Terrion Arnold, he told a story how like his turning point in football. Maybe you saw this, Matt. Basically, he said something like it was a Tennessee game. I think it like last year where he got benched, and he basically said like I had to figure out like what I'm gonna be like as a corner. Like I need to go back to the drawing board, rework things. Got benched, ended up being like way better like come his senior year. So I think I thought that was a good little tidbit. All right, Matt, I'm gonna ask you this one. JJ McCarthy ends up basically in a dream scenario. I think of all the rookie quarterbacks, other than maybe Caleb Williams, all in the same division. It's gonna be awesome division next year. Can't wait to watch it. But are we basically like who? Okay, let me phrase it this way: of all the quarterbacks drafted, who do you guys think if you had to put your stamp on one guy that's going to be a star in this league or is going to make it? Who would you put your stamp on?
Honestly,
go ahead.
It's hard for me not to say. Well, if you're saying a star in this league versus like have the longest career, just being a good NFL quarterback, longest career, it's hard for me not to say McCarthy because of where he was drafted. I think he was drafted in a much better situation than even the Bears. Caleb Williams in the Bears, I mean, they keep drafting quarterback after quarterback, and they never have success with quarterbacks. I mean, Jay Cutler is the best quarterback in that franchise's history, and that's not really saying much.
Hold on. Cutler is Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon.
I mean, he was there for like what, a year or two?
You got to say Jim McMahon.
He's got the one Super Bowl, so okay, you put him up there.
Cutler, man. Cutlets.
I mean, that's definitely an argument to have. Maybe the long, because McMahon only played with the Bears for a couple of years,
3 or 4 years, and even Harbaugh was there too. He's better than Cutler.
But as far as numbers goes, Cutler has the best numbers of any.
All right,
Bears
I'll give you that stat guy.
Yeah, but obviously the game has changed. So all right, we'll give McMahon and his Super Bowl shuffle. We'll let him have that honor, but. The Bears, I mean, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is the Bears keep drafting guys and they keep rotating in head coaches and they keep getting it wrong. So I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to work out there. Who knows? I mean, they've got the skill players and he should have some success, but it hasn't gone well recently. McCarthy doesn't have to step in and be the quarterback from day one. And O'Connell, their head coach, is an offensive-minded guy. They play indoors in that stadium up there in Minnesota. McCarthy, I just think he's got the right mindset too. He was coached by Jim Harbaugh for 3 years at Michigan. He comes in knowing the pro style offense. I'll be very curious to see him. I'm happy he went to Minnesota, but I'm also not happy because we potentially have to see him twice a year for the next however long he's
Yeah, I mean,
playing
it's
for
kind of
Minnesota.
like honestly, and you're because I mean, we're all big Michigan fans and all want to see JJ succeed. I'd say you more than you're a big JJ guy, man. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah.
like a lose-lose in your book. If he's
Right.
good, then it's going to be a thorn in the Lions' side for the next 10 years. If he sucks, it's like, man, he sucks. It's like I
Right.
don't. It's kind of is just kind of a funny little predicament.
That's the thing though. I would be shocked if he is an absolute bust. Like I think at minimum he's going to be a solid NFL quarterback. Is he going to be the next Tom Brady? I don't know, maybe not. But is he going to in 2 years be out of the league? I'd be surprised if it's that bad.
He's like a lot of quarterbacks, so you gotta have the building blocks around him, right?
Right.
I mean, even Jared Goff, some of us are more fans of him than others, but look at that offensive line he has and that
Right.
offense that they run. A lot of things go into a factor for a quarterback being successful. And I think JJ has the physical talent and he seems to have the mental talent. And he comes from a good system when he played for Harbaugh at Michigan. So it's all there. It's all there
Yep.
for him to succeed. I'm certainly not rooting for him, though. I mean, there's no
Right.
way in hell.
Yeah.
And I do think, though, that the quarterback, my personal opinion out of this draft, is Daniels. I think he has the higher upside than any of the other ones. Just me looking at it and
Yeah.
watching him play at two different schools. He has all the tools to be, today's modern day quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
Yep.
I actually, the like kind of scapegoat of the draft was the Atlanta Falcons with what they did.
Right.
I don't. What they did was smart. Like I know I sound stupid saying that. Like maybe it comes across they didn't have a plan. To me, it's kind of just effed up. They basically just bamboozled Kirk Cousins. I'm not
Right.
saying it was like cool what they did, but I think it's smart. It's like, hey, if Kirk Cousins is going to be good, then great. Kirk Cousins is going to be great. We could either trade Penix or we could trade Kirk Cousins after a great year. If Kirk Cousins sucks, we got Penix waiting in the wings. If it just to me it made sense. Like, why not go get this free agent and Kirk Cousins, sign him, and now we can do whatever we want with him. We can still go get a quarterback. I thought that people were over exaggerating a little bit to how bad the Falcons, quote unquote, messed up. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I've been on here saying, like, if you don't have a quarterback, to me, I've always said, like, just keep drafting quarterbacks till you get a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback, nothing matters. What do you guys think? Do you guys think it was really
Well,
that
it's
dumb?
kind of funny you bring that up because last week you dogged on the fact when I threw out there JJ possibly to the Lions. He's you and your backup quarterback strategy. It's the same damn thing. He's going to be a backup quarterback to Cousins. It's the same exact thing. And you think about it. Go ahead, Matt. I was going to
say, and remember, you and I both were whenever this was 3 years ago or whatever, talking about drafting when they still had Stafford, the Lions drafting Tua, because we were like, hey, you got your quarterback, but you need a backup plan. So, right, maybe that's what the Falcons were thinking. Yes, we signed Cousins, but we need a backup plan. I just kind of, to Ted's point, like with whatever quarterback you draft, you got to have the supporting cast. That pick by the Falcons could have really been used on someone that would help Kirk Cousins, whether it was a lineman, whether it was a receiver or something. But it wouldn't have been a strange pick.
It was strange when you think about it. When I was talking last week about, backing up Rodgers in the Jets, okay, for example, he's only going to be around a year or two at the most. The Falcons, they just signed Cousins to a mega contract. Yep. And then they draft a quarterback.
Here's the difference in that scenario. And even to Jared Goff and the Lions. Jared Goff and the Lions can win a Super Bowl. The piece that they can add is potentially to win a Super Bowl. The Falcons are 7-9. Kirk Cousins, even in his best year with the Vikings that year, they had what were they like plus 10 points, but they somehow were like 12-5 or whatever they were. Lose round 1 to Daniel Jones and the Giants. Daniel Jones isn't even a starting quarterback, arguably, this year. They almost drafted JJ. It's Kirk Cousins, for God's sakes. It's not Aaron Rodgers. You don't do that to Aaron Rodgers. They did do it to Aaron Rodgers, and he won back-to-back MVPs.
Then the Falcons probably shouldn't have given Cousins $100 million guaranteed. Then, if he's just Kirk Cousins.
There are some you can definitely pick apart what they did. To me, it made more sense to me than I think we're giving them credit for. And Dan Orlovsky's honestly the only one I've seen really have that opinion. So that's when and I like Dan Orlovsky, but when the entire NFL world, there's only one guy who comes out in defense of it, you kind of realize you're an idiot.
Yeah, this is just my personal opinion. I've seen it out there before. I think he was told to say that.
He said
so he had an opposing point.
Same thing. He said he was not told to say that.
Okay.
Again, I don't think it's
whatever you want to believe.
I really don't think it's that. Now, is there like the only way I don't think it pays off? Like, is that both of them suck? I don't think that's the case.
Right.
Give Penix a year, wait in the wings, trade off Kirk Cousins after hopefully a great year where they make the playoffs. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
We'll see. Time will tell, as everything is. But
Yeah.
Maybe it was cool too to see all the Michigan players get drafted. They didn't end up breaking that record of most draft picks. Still had 13 guys. It's pretty good. Had 4 or 5 others get signed by teams as undrafted free agents. So it's just cool to see, Blake Corum and Harbaugh, even counting, because I think he signed 1 or 2 guys undrafted. Harbaugh ended up with like 3 or 4 Michigan players with the Chargers. So
you would think they have a good chance. You would think if he's signing them, like they have a good chance of making the team.
Right.
And how do you not love Corum going to the Rams?
Yeah.
Kind of seems like a perfect situation for him. I know Kyron Williams is the running back there right now, but I think we all love Corum, and I'll root for him. It'll be fun to see him with Stafford.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Corum will do real well in the NFL, especially in a 2-back system. I mean, he's the real deal for sure.
Yeah, I mean, anymore, no one really has a number one. Everyone has 2 backs for the most part, So him being that rookie behind, like you said, Jared, I mean, could be a lethal offense.
Has the reality really set in like it has with me when I see Harbaugh, in the draft room and he's singing the Wolverine fight song, and then we have that realization knowing that he will not be coaching Michigan anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, it's depressing, isn't it?
It is. I think maybe I've tweeted a couple times. I've definitely said to some friends, and this isn't a shot at Sharon Moore or any of the guys on the team right now. It's more a credit to the 3-year run that we just saw with Michigan. I don't think we're ever going to see that again with how the transfer portal is. The group of head coaches or assistants also that Harbaugh had was a great group of coaches. Think about Mike McDonald, now a head coach, Jesse Minter in the NFL now. I mean, like the 3-year run, like think about the guys that could have left. McCarthy could have hit the transfer portal, after he wasn't the starter, after Cade McNamara. Donovan Edwards could have left. Who knows? Blake Corum, like all these people, Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson, 2 guys that are in the NFL now, not really getting thrown the ball a ton at Michigan. They could have hit the transfer portal. They all stuck it out, and all the linemen that are now in the NFL. Like, I don't know, honestly, and it's not being like cynical, I don't know if we're ever going to see a team or like a run like what we just saw with Michigan, because today's college football is just so different with NIL and transfer portal. I mean, we're already seeing guys after the spring game for Michigan, like 4, 5, 6 guys have hit the transfer portal. So it's just, it's a joke. It's not the same.
We never got burned by the portal. Exactly what you said. We never got burned by it. Now we are starting to. It sucks, man. The thing with Harbaugh and what you guys got to remind is like he went out on top. It was perfect. Like you always remember it for how awesome it was.
That's true.
In the what was it, 9 years? The 9-year battle we really were on to get to that mountaintop. I still haven't come off of it yet. And it's funny. It's like, it's still this Michigan football team's getting honored like left and right. You're talking about the NFL draft. It's like, it's going to be a bummer not seeing him on the sidelines come week 1 of college football next year. But also it's kind of nice knowing that it never can be tarnished what he did.
Right. He did go out on top, and, Matt, to even go further than what you were just talking about, this might've been the greatest football season ever. With add in the draft now. We'll count that as part of the season. It's been unbelievable. So there's nowhere to go but down. If you go higher than that, man, we're living good. Pop the champagne. All right. Anything else on the draft we want to get into, or we want to keep moving on? I know it's gonna be a long one, it looks like.
Well, I mean, they do it right. The NFL draft, they do it right.
Absolutely. And Lions signed Michigan's kicker as a free agent. Yeah. So they got some competition they can have now, because that part does worry me a little bit,
I am curious. So I don't know. We don't talk about the USFL very much on here.
Right.
But the Michigan Panthers, I don't know if you guys have seen, they have a kicker that hits like 70-yard bombs, and people have been like, dude, why aren't the Lions bringing him in? I'll be curious if something comes of that.
Why not? Try him out.
Absolutely. Let's get it going. All right, let's take another short break, and we'll be back with this week's edition of Tedtertainment Tonight.